My name is Natasha and this is the Liminal World project. Today I have a new story to share, and this one is about me and one of the projects I was working on last year. In order to come to this moment, which is September 2021, I need to go back in time and share a few details. 3 years ago, I wrote and self-published my first book in Serbian language. I said back then, and I will repeat now, I never imagined that I would write a book one day, but I did so, and it happened to be my memoir. So I wrote about myself and my life journey. First, I started with carefree childhood, where I said a lot about my family life, a life in my former country, Yugoslavia. I said a lot about my hometown, which is Belgrade. And then I came to 90s. 90s were the time of change, collective societal change, because those were the years where my country actually disappeared in a civil war, and then as a society we experienced isolation, and then we got bombed. So it was a lot of change. Through that societal and collective change, in my book I write actually about my personal change and how everything I saw, everything I felt led me to the place where I live today, which is West Coast Canada, or made me the person I am today. I named that book Danas nam je divan dan, which, if I would translate in English, it literally means today is a wonderful day. I choose this title for a few reasons, but the main one was its connection to the song we usually sing in Serbia for birthday parties. So instead of singing happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Natasha, happy birthday to you, we sing Danas nam je divan dan, divan dan, divan dan, našoj Nataši rođendan, 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 živela, živela i srećna nam bila, živela, živela i srećna nam bila, which actually means today is a wonderful day. Natasha is celebrating her birthday and we all sing long live and be happy forever. What I wanted to say with this title is that my book for me was about new beginning. In order to write this book, I had to go back in time, and people usually say you are reviewing your story, which is not true for me. I actually had to relive all the moments, and because many of them were very painful, I actually had to push myself through all those hard times in order to come out as a different person. And I felt as a different person. I saw that new beginning. I saw a path ahead of me. And I knew that I could create a new life if I choose to take on that path. I cherish this book so much, and I know that any book I may write one day won't mean to me as much as this one. This one was my turning point. My new path was about storytelling, and I knew that. But it is one thing to know what are you supposed to do, and completely another thing is to actually do it. So this is where the real work, hard work began for me. I first started my blog where I promised myself every month I will publish one story in both languages, Serbian and English, and I did so. Later on that same year, 2018, I enrolled into photography courses here on University of Victoria on Vancouver Island because I wanted to bring that visual element into my stories. In 2019, someone pushed me to use my voice and to start reading out loud my stories. I, of course, choose to read stories in Serbian because I felt comfortable in my language. And after I would record it, I would put that audio version on my website. I still didn't dare to speak up in English. That was so hard. But during that year, I actually developed the idea about a new project. I call it Liminal World, and I wanted to talk about immigration, and I started gathering information and people who would like to join me. And in 2020, when we were in self-isolation, I actually manifested. This project wasn't about immigration, but it was still about the transition, because now the whole planet was in a kind of transition, a big change that was shifting our lives, and I wanted to capture that. So I invited people to join me and to share their life experiences, their life journeys, especially the moments during Corona. During 2020, I was reminded again about my book in Serbian language, because I left a note on my website that I'm planning to translate it in English. So since 2020, late 2020, I was working on the translation, and I'm happy to announce that today, in September 2021, I'm holding the English version of my book in my hands. Finally, it's time for English readers to read my story. And the title for this version is The Journey to Bring Back Play. I worked on this book a long time. At the beginning, I naively believed that I would find someone who would translate my book, I would pay the service and publish the book, and that's it. But that didn't happen, because I had to work hard, and I did that by finding an editor here in Canada. Her name is Darcy Nibo. Her presence for my book was crucial. She was my helper, she was my writing coach, and she was my guide. Before our collaboration, I wasn't aware how someone outside of my culture and language would read my story and perceive what was written. And funny enough, that piece of information was exactly what I needed before releasing my book in English. Darcy came up with a lot of suggestions, and first of all, she wanted for me to find the titles for my chapters, which I did. She said that's great for organizing text, and I was like, oh, why I didn't think about that earlier. But she also came up with a ton of questions, like, what do you mean by saying this? Can you explain this story better? Or, oh, I want to hear more, just give me another detail. So I actually, by going through the questions, I actually start thinking as someone who is outside of my culture and outside of this situation that I'm talking about. And I start rewriting my story. I had to dig deeper into every paragraph, every line. And through the weeks and months that we were working on, I actually realized that my book is getting a new shape and new form. Except Darcy, I had a huge support from my early readers, Ćećez-Sekulić, Scott Hamerton, and Shannon Perkins Carr. Ćećez-Sekulić is my husband, so he knows this story in great detail. What I wanted to hear from him is his reaction to this story being written in English. And I was delighted when he said he liked this version better than the original. Scott is my friend, but he's also a writer himself. I knew he would give me valuable feedback. He came up with some good suggestions, such as using maps, and he also wanted to hear more about history of my country. As I didn't want to get deeper into facts, I made a small introduction where I said what I thought was important for my story. It meant a lot to me when he said after reading my book, You know, Natasha, now I know more what was like to be part of history, what was like to be a youngster inside of a country that was going through such hard times. Shannon is an artist, but she's also an emerging author herself. And I wonder what she would say about my story. Getting an emotional reaction from another writer and reader is priceless. She said, "Your book made me cry and laugh," which is great because that's actually a characteristic of every good book. Shannon also left me notes about lines I could rewrite or add ones that would make my story flow better, which of course I did. There is something my early readers, as well as my editor, had in common, and that was the fact that they wanted to hear more. They wanted to read more. They wanted to know more about myself and my country and everything I went through. But this was the moment when I actually found myself at the crossroad. While rewriting my story, I feared that my English version would be completely different than the Serbian one, and I didn't want that to happen. Although in meantime I've gained deeper understanding of my life journey, although I knew now better how to describe some moments, I didn't want to change the narrative. What I wanted was to acknowledge Natasha, who wrote this book. She was courageous enough to take on this journey, to get back in time and walk herself through the very hard experiences and feel all the pain she felt. And I wanted to say that Natasha was and still is my hero. So narrative will be the same. But also I want to mention that in this book I have more details, as my wish was only to bring this story closer to the English reader. There is something interesting about my book, what I want to mention here, and it's about its timing. I think the timing of this book in English is actually perfect. If I could choose, I wouldn't be able to choose such a more relevant time than this one. And what do I mean by that? 2020 was the time of global change. Every person on this planet went through the process of self-isolation. Everybody faced fear or some kind of uncertainty. We all went into that territory of unknown. So I know that many people were harshly affected, whereas others use this situation to shift their jobs or relocate their families or start new families or start new businesses. So it depends. Change was actually the main word would be the main word for the last 2 years. And change is what my book is about. In my case, change came with the war. Today it came with virus. But one fact is the same. Life we knew before this crisis was one. We had one communities, one beliefs, one knowing, or one job. And now we are, shifting. For some it's easier, for others not. But we are shifting and we are able, there is potential to create something new. So while we are struggling to let go of many things, we are not realizing that we are actually gaining a space to create something completely new and valuable. So my book is about change and about that process, how I went through that process. So people will be able to relate to it more than they would if they haven't had this last 2 years of their experience. So maybe some people will recognize themselves in me, but others, I'm sure, will be able to understand Natasha. My book, The Journey to Bring Back Play, is officially out. I self-published it in September 2021 in 2 versions. There is a printed book with a softcover, and there is an ebook. If you're interested in reading my story, you can purchase my book by clicking on the links which are in the description box, or you can find the same links on my website. If you happen to like my story, please share the news about it with the people from your community. Maybe there is a hidden message in my text that someone out there needs to hear. My wish was to prepare a proper in-person book presentation, but I didn't get a chance to do that, so I had to make this online video. Keep in mind that I'm still looking around and trying to find, the place and the way how I can gather with you and celebrate with you with this great moment for me. Writing the book in Serbian was meaningful, but rewriting the book in English, which is obviously my second language, is a milestone for me. I want to mark this occasion, and I want to see you all there. Friends, acquaintances, people from my school community, neighbors, my co-workers, please come and join me in my celebration. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for buying my book. Thank you for sharing the news about my book. And thank you ahead for joining me in my celebration. Take care.